This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Looks like Democrats are having more problems with Joe Manchin as inflation rises. Joe Manchin points to that as an excuse for not passing the Build Back Better plan, as well as some other issues with the Build Back Better plan causing $200 billion to go into deficit, meaning it is not fully paid for, among a few other issues. I'm going to go over Pramila Jayapal's recent interview where she talks about how everything is fine and everything is still going to pass. I'm also going to go over this article right here, stimulus update. New study shows how the child tax credit money has directly benefited kids. Also, this one right here, Biden concedes his COVID stimulus checks fueled spike in inflation. It'll give you some other more important updates as well. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below. So, surging gasoline, food prices, fan U.S. inflation. Prices are continuing to go up. It seems like they're just not going down anytime soon, and the people who are hit the hardest are the ones with the least amount of money, especially on fixed incomes as food and gas prices rise and their incomes stay the same. So one study here, stimulus update, new study shows child tax credit money has directly benefited kids. So what it's saying here, a few different things. The payments help cover child care expenses. The money went towards school expenses too, and also children are now living in households with less debt. If you receive the child tax credit for your kids, has this helped? Has it relieved some of the stress, some of the financial pressure that's been going on lately? Let me know your thoughts on that. Also, in terms of California stimulus checks, 784,000 new payments are going to be sent out this upcoming Friday, actually. So these are the direct deposits that are going out. Looks like more California stimulus checks. I thought it was over, but seems to just keep going on. When it comes to a fourth stimulus check for the Change.org petition for the $2,000 every month to every American, currently at 2,955,000 signatures so far. And when it comes to President Biden and stimulus, this is what he said recently in a speech. Biden concedes his COVID stimulus checks fueled spike in inflation. So basically what he said is, the irony is people have more money now because of the first major piece of legislation I passed. You all got checks for $1,400. You got checks for a whole range of things. Then he says, if you're a mom, you have kids under the age of 7, you get $300 per month, and if it's over 7 to 17, you're getting $360 a month. Not sure if that's true. Then he's misstating the second amount, which is actually $250 a month. So yeah, he made a mistake there. It's actually $250 a month. Then he says, it changes people's lives, but what happens if there's nothing to buy? You got money to compete for getting goods. It creates a real problem. So basically addressing the issue of inflation, and that's probably one of the biggest issues for the Democrats and the Biden administration. They don't really have a way to tackle inflation. Basically saying that inflation is going to go down, but it's not really going down anytime soon. Inflation puts White House on defensive as Manchin raises concerns about new spending. So basically, the way it's split up, the two different mentalities, the Democrats are saying that yes, inflation is on the rise, therefore we need to pass the Build Back Better plan so that it'll help with inflation and prices will go down. Meanwhile, Joe Manchin and the Republicans are saying that we need to taper off all the big spending, so no Build Back Better plan. This way inflation will go down. If we spend too much on this big plan, then prices will go up, inflation will go up. So those are the two competing mentalities. So it puts the White House in a difficult position because it's hard to make the case saying that if you spend more, inflation will go up, when even President Biden said that might have caused inflation to begin with. So inflation spike gives ammunition to Joe Manchin, as well as a few other things. So Joe Manchin is pointing to a lot of different issues with the Build Back Better plan, saying that he may not go for it because of inflation, because of spending. Also, Manchin opposes proposed bonus tax credit for union-made electric vehicles in Biden's spending bill. So Manchin criticized the proposal while attending an event at the Toyota facility in his home state of West Virginia. So this is another issue that he has. So basically, the provision included in draft versions of the legislation dubbed the Build Back Better Act would offer a $7,500 tax credit for purchases of electric vehicles for 5 years after the bill is passed. However, electric vehicles manufactured at not at union-run U.S. facilities would be eligible for an additional $4,500 credit. So he has an issue with that. Let me know, electric vehicles, should more people buy them? Should there be an incentive to buy it? Is a $7,500 or $4,500 tax credit a good idea, bad idea? Let me know your thoughts on electric vehicles too in general. Also, Budget Scorekeeper starts releasing estimates for Democrats' massive spending plans. So this is the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, with the CBO score. That's the nonpartisan score to let people know whether or not a bill is a good idea to pass. So for example, in this case, the Build Back Better plan, which is, I don't even know the number at this point. It was around 2 trillion, then 1.75 trillion. I think it's closer to 1.5 trillion at this point. And they're saying that it's not looking good. So estimates are starting to come out, not fully, but its independent analysis says budget bill could add $200 billion to deficit. So this kind of goes against what the Democrats are saying, that it's fully paid for, that there's no need to worry about the Build Back Better plan because it's not going to add to the deficit. Meanwhile, this score, which is independent, nonpartisan, saying that it is adding to the deficit. Basically, the deficit is like the country's credit card. We already have enough debt, and a lot of people are saying we don't need to add more to it. But on the other hand, no one knows what this debt actually means for us. But we're going to see that in a few weeks, actually, where the debt ceiling would need to be raised even higher. So Pramila Jayapal, who is a Progressive Caucus leader, says it is going to take time for economy to recover. Build Back Better is going to help people survive. So that's her stance on this. Here's a video clip of what she has to say about it.
So what does this mean for the fate of the White House agenda in Congress? Joining me now is Washington Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And Congresswoman, let me start there. Joe Manchin's referring to this current inflation issue as an inflation tax. What do you see and what do you tell your constituents? Because on one hand, wages are up, and on the other hand, cost of living is up.
Well, Chuck, that's exactly right. I mean, that is what we're hearing from my constituents. They're not talking about inflation, by the way. They're talking about, hey, I don't have enough money in my budget to pay for the things I need to pay for. And the reason I say it that way is because it's really important to understand that if you're on a fixed budget, as many people are, as I have been in my life, then what you're always trying to do is balance what you have to spend with what you have in that budget. The way that we can fix that immediately while the supply chain issues are being worked out, while the economy recovers from COVID and the worst economic downturn we've seen in recent history, is we can actually help families cut their costs. How do we do that? We passed the Build Back Better Act. We cut child care costs in half by assuring that no family is going to pay more than 7%. We ensure that pre-K is provided for 3- and 4-year-olds. We cut the cost of pharmaceutical drugs so that people can actually pay less for their health care. Those are the things that are going to immediately affect people's pocketbooks. And that is why it is so important to pass the Build Back Better Act, which I think is actually going to help people survive through this time of recovery. Let's be clear. It is going to take time to recover. We knew that. We have made tremendous progress on COVID, but my families are telling me, look, I still don't have childcare. My kids are just starting to get vaccinated and go back to school. That's the uncertainty that families are living with, and we have to respond by cutting their costs, which is exactly what we do in Build Back Better.
Look, I'm curious because of Joe Manchin's concerns on this, are you open to retooling some parts of Build Back Better because I know the way it would work, the first couple of years, it might be some deficit spending, and then as it sort of works its way through, it eventually gets paid for. Do you imagine that becomes part of the conversation with Senator Manchin and moderates who are concerned about adding anything that could increase inflation? I mean, I've seen one study now that the way Build Back Better is written, as it's written right now, it would have a small inflationary impact in the first few years.
Well, look, if people were worried about deficit spending, then they probably shouldn't have voted for the infrastructure bill, because that did increase the deficit slightly. The reality is we've been negotiating Build Back Better for many months, and it will be paid for completely. The agreement that we made with my 6 colleagues in the House that we're waiting for some additional fiscal information, not a CBO score, Chuck, I want to make sure you know that, but actually just some fiscal information so they could look at it, make sure that it matched up with what the JCT, the Joint Committee on Taxation, and the White House had provided to them around the costs of some of these investments we're making and the revenues we're going to get back. The minute that those generally match up, but no later than next week, these 6 are going to vote for this bill, and we're going to pass it through. Everyone's been talking about how important it is for our constituents. What they do in the Senate should be everything, almost everything in this bill was pre-conference. There were 1 or 2 things that were not yet totally agreed to. Those should be the only things left on the table, and we should get it passed and deliver for the American people.
You have any regrets for decoupling? I mean, you didn't want to decouple the 2 bills for fear that moderates could walk away. This is the type of sort of, news event that could come in and sort of upend things. Any regrets on decouple and agreeing to decouple and letting the infrastructure bill pass?
I don't have regrets. Do I wish that we could have passed both bills? And do I wish that the 6 Democrats that didn't want to vote for it, suddenly at the last minute said they wouldn't vote for Build Back Better, had not done that? Of course. I wish we could have passed them both. But I will tell you that we got the next best thing, which is we were able to actually, number 1, deliver the votes for the infrastructure bill. It would not have happened without progressive votes, and we had to make that choice at the last minute. But also, number 2, that we got, in spite of all the pressure raining down on us to just get the BIF passed, get the votes done. What we did is we held out so that we could get a very clear agreement from the 6 that 10 days later we would pass the Build Back Better Act through the House. So I always say, Chuck, that negotiations, and you know this, negotiations are always changing, right? They change with the conditions on the ground. And what you have to do is be creative enough to put a solution on the table that may not have been on the table before, that will still get you to the goal that you are pushing for. Our goal was to pass Build Back Better through the House, and I'm very confident we will do that next week.
Is there anything you think the administration or you in Congress should attempt to do to alleviate the gas price pain temporarily?
Well, I know, I was listening to your segment. I know that the administration is looking at all the options on the table. But again, I want to say that it isn't, the gas price is an indication for families of other things that they are feeling. It isn't really that you have to reduce the gas price. What you have to do is reduce the cost for families so that they can manage. Now, we just cannot gloss over the fact that wages have also risen. So the actual impact that people are feeling right now is real, but it is also smaller. It's the fear that people have. So what can we do to alleviate that fear and any increase that they are seeing? It doesn't have to be through lowering gas prices. That's what I'm saying with Build Back Better. If we lower costs, that's what a family is looking at. That's what my families are saying is, look, the gas is one thing, but if I can get my childcare paid for, heck, I'm in, I'm good for that. So I think that's how we should be looking at it. And sometimes the economic views of inflation or, massive rises in inflation, that's not really how people experience things on the ground. And I just think that's important to keep in mind.
What do you think about what Pramila Jayapal has to say? Seems like it's the same thing she's saying, that it's going to happen, but when? With Joe Manchin pointing out all these flaws and his vote being as important as the bill passing itself, it seems like we don't really see any solutions, just more and more obstacles, more problems. Maybe this is a rough patch, maybe not. Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments below. Next up is a video clip from Representative John Yarmuth talking more about inflation and tied to it and how it's going to get better in the future.
Congressman, there was a great story by Neil Irwin in the New York Times over the weekend with the headline, "Americans are flush with cash and jobs. They also think the economy is awful." How is it possible? And is this a messaging problem? How is it possible that the stock market is doing as well as it is, that the real economy, to a large degree, looks like it's doing well? I think inflation is a real issue, however, and yet the approval ratings and poll numbers for the administration and for some of your peers and colleagues doesn't seem to reflect that.
Right. You know, Andrew, I think that those numbers are not really a reflection of how people are feeling financially. I think they are reacting to what they look at as a chaotic situation, and all of the factors that were mentioned, things like the supply chains and gas prices and so forth. But so I think those are numbers that can be reversed. But again, I think we have to get these things passed, because some of these things are not going to go into effect immediately. People won't feel them. You're not going to see all of a sudden bulldozers everywhere because of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. You're going to see that's going to be money that's going to be spent over the next 6, 7, 8 years. And on the Build Back Better Act side, the one thing that people will feel immediately is parents who will get that $300 check every month as part of the expanded child tax credit. That's the kind of thing that they'll feel immediately. And again, we have to make sure they know that we did it, Republicans opposed it. And that's our responsibility. And if we don't do a good job at that, we'll take a beating next year.
Again, at this point, we keep hearing politicians keep saying it's going to get better, but yet we don't really see the action. This is the time when people are struggling most, where they feel it at the grocery store when they pay for food, feel it at the gas station when they need to fill up to get to work with no other choice. So this is the time when it's getting really hard for Americans. Americans are really feeling the pain, and we need leaders to step up. We need a big change to happen right now. So hopefully something happens soon. If you appreciate these updates, subscribe to the channel. If you like how I give it in a fact-based, fast-paced way, give you the truth, give you straight up information, no hype or anything, subscribe to the channel. Next, I'm going to give you my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, I didn't see you there. Hi, this is Belle to the tip of the day. I want to tell you the one thing when you feel something, when you feel like in a mood, tell the people that how you feel like in your body. Don't try to hide it. Be exposed.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your support. So everything is good with the fam, got the kids, all good. We're gonna probably just relax for the weekend. Hopefully you have a good weekend as well. And take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.